All right, it actually happened. It took place. Joe Rogan had Donald Trump on his show. Finally, ages upon ages, we had waited for this one moment in history, and it didn't let down. It did not let us down. It was spectacular. Today we are going to dissect, we're going to look at the most heightened moment, the most explosive moments that happened during the sit-down, the conversation that we had been waiting for. Let's dive into it.
B-I-G-I, stampede away from an equal. When you gotta get it, buckle down and handle business, and you know to play your role, just in case you don't get to a sequel.
It broke the internet. It literally broke the internet. Where is that right now? It is at, looks like almost 20 million views in not even 24 hours, it looks like. So it came out, it was released yesterday, Friday, probably about 7 p.m.-ish. And whenever I saw it, like, because we were waiting all day, because it happened during the day, yesterday, October 25th, was released that night to the world, got to see what happens. And it did not let us down. It was very good. I sat through the whole thing. Normally, a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, I don't sit through the whole thing because they are very lengthy. But this one is one of those that is up there that I had to see every moment. And I'll probably rewatch it a few more times, but it was very good. It was very good. So today we're going to take a look at some of the highest moments that happened during the sit down between the number 45 and Joe Rogan. Here we go. So the conversation starts with Joe Rogan talking about how Donald Trump was a beloved figure before he got into politics. Everybody liked Trump. There was a time, the kids these days, they're not going to understand that Trump used to be popular with everyone. The majority of people loved Donald Trump, like in this country. Even like the famous people out there, Hollywood people, sports people, everyone loved him. But then he got into politics, and just like anything in politics, if you say anything about politics, you're immediately gonna alienate and get half of the people that are listening to you to kind of raise their eyebrows and start reevaluating how they view you. It seems like some of those highfalutin celebrities that are on The View, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, Donald Trump goes on that show and he is just welcomed with open arms. Can you even believe it? That seems like another universe. Let me just say this about this show, and I watched it beginning to end, and I'm probably, like I said, going to watch it many more times. There are things that Joe Rogan didn't bring up. He didn't bring up everything that you wish that he would have said. It was by far one of the best shows that I've seen Joe Rogan do. And a lot of times with his shows, like, because Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan. He is who he is. And a lot of times the difference is definitely the guest that comes on the show. But there was something I would say about this sit down that he didn't go into everything that I wish he would have gone into with talking about Trump. He didn't go into the nooks and crannies that I wish he would have just dived into and I wish he would have brought up. And I don't know if it's because it's at this high climactic point in the election cycle. We are at the precipice of the election actually happening. Like there was some high, well thought through script, what he was going to say and what he wasn't going to say. Because it didn't seem like Joe Rogan went completely off the cuff and said everything that was in his heart that he wanted to get out of Trump in this interview. Because there are definitely things that would have been fun to hear and fun to see. And I think he held back a little bit because we are so close to the election happening. We're almost like a week away of it actually happening. So we're going to get into it. But I'm going to start it off. This is him talking about whenever Trump goes on The View about almost 9 years ago, whenever he was getting ready to launch his first campaign. And he was still, at this point in time, Donald Trump was still a beloved figure to the most famous people out there. Everyone loved him because, he was a business guy, and he was a guy that he was a Democrat for most of his life. He was a guy that he wasn't a political animal at the time. He had to cozy up to politicians for the sole purpose of growing his business. A lobbyist. Here we go.
Light. The audience was cheering, and then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
But there's probably no one in history that I've ever seen that's been attacked the way you've been attacked and the way they've done it so coordinated and systematically. And when you see those same people in the past, very favorable to you, like Oprah, when you were on Oprah's show,
very.
She was encouraging you.
Last week, I did one of her last shows.
Okay, so here we go. This is going to be him going into kind of just talking about him reminiscing back in his life when he understood that when times were like that people actually liked Trump. Everyone did. All right, and let's play that.
In your financial positions, but you're very liberal socially. They were talking about you in such a favorable light. The audience was cheering, and then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
But there's probably no one in history that I've ever seen that's been attacked the way you've been attacked and the way they've done it so coordinated and systematically. And when you see those same people in the past, very favorable to you, like Oprah, when you were on Oprah's show,
very.
She was encouraging you to
last
be president.
week, I did one of her last shows, I think.
All right. So he goes on The View, and the crowd goes wild. The crowd goes wild, and there was nothing but hugs, bear hugs, and embracing, and just, you should go back and find that video of him going on The View. It was most of his life until 2015, ramping up until 2015, whenever he starts his campaign. There was that feel of we love. He's a beloved figure. We love him. We love him. The thing that set him off was when he started criticizing Barack Obama. And if you actually go back, it was 2011 at the White House Correspondents' Dinner where Barack Obama roasted Donald Trump. And if you should go find that video, and that's Trump is in the audience, and because Donald Trump had been saying some kind of critical things about Barack Obama, questioning where he was born, and was he born in Hawaii like it is said, and he started the birth certificate. That was the whole thing that was being brought up over and over. And Barack Obama, he kind of just went after Donald Trump. He had the podium, he had the microphone, and you just see this video of Barack Obama just hammering Donald Trump, and you see Donald Trump in the audience, you just see him just sitting there and just taking it, and you see him from an angle, but that was what a lot of people think was what set him to the point where he's like, I am going to make a presidential run. Because there's so many points in Donald Trump's history, in his life, where you see him going on shows when he was a young cat, and he was just a businessman that people were just glamorized and just loved and just looked up to in that point. And they always asked him, would you ever think about stepping into politics and running for the president? And a lot of times he just said, no, it's not my thing. There's that very famous one. It might have been from the 90s when Donald Trump was on Oprah's show, and she asked him, would you ever run for president? Why wouldn't you? And he said, like, no, it's not my thing. I'm a business guy. I want the people that are up there to do their job. And then Joe Rogan switches gears, and he starts asking, like, so whenever you stepped into the presidency, whenever you were sworn in, what was it like? What changed in your life? What was the whole feeling like? And did everything happen the way that you expected it would? So at the beginning, Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, he, as a master communicator, and that which he is, he's nothing but talking, because he's always at rallies, he's always doing interviews, he's always doing podcasts, he's always doing something talking, and he can just talk for hours upon end, and he brings up stuff, and he goes on a lot of different tangents. He does something that he calls the weave, whereas he goes and he talks about something, and he goes off to here, and then he goes off to here, but he always brings it back to a central, like a theme or something like that, because he says you can lose your audience if you go too far off the path and you don't ever come back. He says if you don't come back, then people are just lost and they just like want to get the hell out of there, you know? He does that thing, that weaving back and forth, and he brings story upon story. At this point in the podcast, Rogan he's like, we can't spend our time talking about that, and he says he wants to get to the heart of it. What did you experience when you became president? What was it like? What changed in your life? Was it as surreal as you thought it would be? All right, and here he goes.
I won. I guess if you max it out, it would be a year, something like that. So I had never run for office. And I did well. I mean, I went into debates. We had 18 people, including me. And then slowly but surely they started to disappear. We had debates, good debates.
Everyone's aware of all this stuff. But what I want to get to is, like, what was the experience once you got inside
It
like,
was just
what did you think it was going to be like in terms of like your ability to govern?
Yeah.
Like this is your first experience governing anything. You never been a governor. You never been a mayor.
Private stuff.
Business.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you're inside the White House.
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this hallowed, it was really a hallowed place to me. It was
surreal.
It was beyond, to me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience.
So if there's one thing about Donald Trump, he has the ability to be positive and put everything in the best light. He definitely does that. I think a lot of people give him a lot of flack for that because he's like, I got the biggest crowds. There was one point in the video I thought it felt like Trump was kind of stretching it out and kind of just losing himself a little bit. His weave, I thought, was kind of getting a little unwoven, and it kind of went in a direction I didn't think was great. But it was at just one point in the video, and I don't even think a lot of people are going to even catch it. You know, unless you're that diehard where you watch the whole thing and you're kind of overly critical of it, and you're looking for that. But either way, it was open and honest. Donald Trump just said what he believes, like he always does. It went very smoothly with Joe Rogan on this podcast. I think one of the best moments was they just started talking about fighting, like ultimate fighting, MMA. Like Joe Rogan is just so passionate about that. If he's passionate about like having news and doing podcasts and just having conversations with his guests, he's almost even more so about fighting, because that's like something that's like deep down into his core and what he loves. Because when he was in school, he wasn't big into sports, but he was big into fighting, and he's like grown up with MMA, and he loves it. He is like almost, apart from Dana White, he is probably like the face of UFC. They both love it. And you can see that I think Joe Rogan definitely loves it more, and Donald Trump is able to kind of just step in. He doesn't miss a beat as in talking about that part of Joe Rogan's life and that part of his passion of fighting. And that's something I don't think that Kamala Harris, if she goes on there, they're not going to jive as much like in that aspect of it. She will be more rigid and more kind of, it will be hard, I think, for her to kind of let herself actually take a breath and just like relax and just talk with him. I still absolutely think that Kamala Harris should go on Joe Rogan's podcast, though. It would help her. It would actually help her a lot. I think it would. And I've went back and forth with this, but I think overall it would help her because he would get out of her who she really is, and people would see it and have a better idea. And I think she's almost hurting in the polls, and she needs to do something. So she needs to go on Joe Rogan's show. But so there were moments where Trump, he just goes on like his spiels and his tangent when he like, and I don't like to say like tangent as in like in a bad thing, because I mean, he just has his repetitious things that he just says over and over, and he puts things in the best light possible. And he talks about his presidency, and if Trump ain't perfect, he absolutely puts it forward like he is perfect, and everything that he does is perfect. And it's in the best possible it could be. And I think it's that overconfidence, which again, it can definitely turn people away, but it's also, I mean, for a person that is at the highest position in whatever kind of company or governmental agency or whatever, the person that is the top dog, I think you need that. I think you need someone that's going to have that attitude that I am going to be unwilling to lose. I'm going to win and do whatever it takes, and I'm going to put things in the best light possible. Sometimes it can kind of get like, really, you know, and I think people get that. I mean, I don't really get like that, but like I know it can be for some people. And whenever he does that, he'll just talk about things, and it rubs people the wrong way, you know? And that's why he's so polarizing. He was fine being the way that he is like that when he was not in politics.
The biggest mistake I made was I picked some great people, you know, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah.
So I don't know what a neocon is, but it's something. It's something. And Joe Rogan says, he says, neocons, is that what you picked? And he said, this is something that was very tough for Donald Trump, because he's stepping into Washington for the first time. You know, he had gone there many times in his life, and he had seen what it is, you know, but from the outside, and he's walking into the party, and he doesn't know what's actually happening in the back rooms. He doesn't see it. He's only been there as in a person to get whatever he can out of Washington, but he doesn't know the people doing lines of coke in the back and shooting up heroin and all that junk. He doesn't see the dark stuff that's happening behind the scenes, but he actually steps into Washington. He goes in there, goes in the front door. He goes in the front door and he goes back and he sees the disaster and the just twisted things that are happening in this house party that is the government and that is Washington, D.C. And he labels it the swamp. And once he gets in there, he starts saying, I got to drain this swamp. And that's kind of the phrase he uses over and over. But I think he got in there and then he started seeing that this is a swamp. This is a dirty crack house that is just sick and twisted inside. On the outside, we see kind of like, even though we know that politicians are destitute and they're not the best of human beings, you know, but like, I think Washington just takes everybody to their most basic instinct of just survival of the fittest. That's right. When you get thrown into that, I mean, you can think of as in businesses, people get cutthroat. I just want to do whatever it is I can to get to the top. I mean, that is like on steroids in Washington. It's all about survival. How can I cut this person out so I can stay in line? What can I do to keep power? Because I think it's just people that are just power hungry animals that get there. It's hard to keep your soul when you become a politician. I would say there are a lot of dark things happening that they get on people, you know? When somebody gets power and they have that ability, it's hard to relinquish it. It's very hard to relinquish it. And you see who people truly are, you know? And I mean, what is that movie about Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis? Is it Will Ferrell? I think it's Will Ferrell, but those politicians, and it's like, welcome to the show, buddy. It's like, we don't even know. To me, it's like, it's fake as in it's like wrestling, but it's fake, but like people are still there. There's still people that are up there and they want power and they're going to just do whatever it is to cut out from under people so that they can have power, so they can look good. That's why politics, man, it is ugly stuff. It is extremely ugly stuff, you know? And Trump, he walks in the front door, he sees this like mess that it is, and he's like, I'm going to drain the swamp. He starts appointing people to be a part of his cabinet, to be a part of his administration, and he doesn't really know who they are. And I don't think you really know a person until you start going to battle with them, until you start until you're having to kind of work things out together, because people can always put on a face. They can always put on in their Sunday best in whatever they're going through and make themselves look like a good friend, make themselves look as reliable, as loyal, as just they're going to get things done. But when the rubber meets the road, that's when it's going to show who they truly are. And Trump, he appoints a lot of people. If you're a president, within that first 30 days from being elected till you start becoming till you are sworn in, you got to start putting everything. You got to put a whole team together, because it's not just one president goes in and then they take everything that's there. There's some things that they inherit, but for the most part, they put in a whole new slew of people. And that's what Trump did. He comes out of the business world and he starts putting together this group of people that he thinks he can rely on. It's probably everything's going 100 miles per hour and he's got to point this person, but he sees that he appointed a lot of people that were not reliable and that were kind of the worst of the people, and just stuck their knives in his back. And I think he's going into this election, if he becomes president, if he gets elected, he will have that wisdom and that remembrance of what it is. And he won't be coming in getting blindsided. He will be coming in with a lot of experience that it would have been nice if he had the first time. And so he starts talking about that. Let's see what he has to say.
Or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad.
That were into the
people that bad advice.
Yeah, you're reading about him a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around, because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me, because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player.
Bolton. So, if you know John Bolton, he is a war hawk. He's a person that gets labeled like that. There are many of those in Washington. Who is that other person? Lindsey Graham. He's also like that. I mean, I like Lindsey Graham. But then there's some people that are just like, it seems like they're called like war hawks. Like they are just they're bloodthirsty. They want to get out there and fight. And it seems like John Bolton is like that. And Trump is going to say he was a good person to have on your team, as in somebody behind him, because he used that to his advantage. Because going to having conversations with other countries, it was almost like they got this guy on their team. Like, it kind of like gave them a little step back. So Trump takes everything and uses it to his advantage. And he uses it to our advantage. He uses it to if it's his company or it's his country, he uses it to our advantage, and that's what he did. He took John Bolton, who was almost a war hawk, and he used it for a good purpose, and just almost to intimidate people like, man, this guy's a loose cannon. What's he going to do having John Bolton on his team? So another thing about this interview, like if you see about Trump and what he talks about, he has this love and this infatuation with tariffs, and because it is the weapon, and he says it's the most beautiful word out there, tariff. And when most people out there, when they hear tariffs, it doesn't mean that much to them. But the way that Trump used it, he says it's like it's that weapon that he can use against other countries to kind of, it's like almost leverage that to get what he wants and to kind of like push his agenda forward and help the American people. And he does this in a way that you wouldn't think of it. You think of like, what's tariffs? How is putting tariffs, and what a tariff is like you put something on a product that if somebody from another country wants to sell something to you, wants to sell something in the United States, that they're going to have to pay it. They're going to have to pay it. Really, it's the people in the United States, as in the companies that are buying it from outside, that are paying it, but it's going to change the way that they are doing things, because they're not going to want to buy things outside of the United States because they're going to have to pay that tariff. So rather, it's to kind of shift and move things so that they start building it and creating it within the United States. So, I mean, whenever you think of tariffs and the whole logical outcome of what happens with tariffs and what they do and the behavior that they kind of create in the American people and American businesses and companies and the American people, what they buy, it's tariffs kind of just basically change the behavior. And the whole goal is to not just make other countries pay, but like, as in like to get money in that way, to buy things from and get money into the government that way, as in to slap a tariff on it, but rather it's to change the pattern of behavior of the businesses and jobs getting their goods from outside of the United States, rather to start creating goods within the United States, which creates jobs for people, and that which also we can export to other countries. And then we also start bringing in even more revenue that way, as in buying and other countries buying our goods and not just us buying everyone else's goods. So it's a whole mind shift whenever you think of tariffs, but he uses it in like a really good way. If you actually go into it and him explaining it and talking about it, we'll just hear a little bit more about it.
For having countries pay us billions and billions and trillions even dollars. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. Nobody took in 10 cents, not one other president. I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular. I just do what's right. And when you do that, you're more, look at Iran. We would have never had the attack on Israel at all. Iran.
So to me, like this, like what reminds me, and this is going to sound weird. If anyone's out there that's seen the movie Dazed and Confused, if you've ever seen this, it's a movie about like taking place in the 70s about these kids in high school. But there's this one person that's in that movie played by Ben Affleck. O'Banion, I think that's his name, and he's kind of this guy that got held back as a senior, and just everybody doesn't like him, but he's a good guy to have on your team to be fighting for you, because he's almost like a bully. He's almost like in that sense, he's the guy that you want out there blocking for you. So people, like, he is not somebody that people love, like in the countries outside. That's why I think there's these assassination attempts. Like there's people that don't like him within the country, that hate Trump within our country. And it's been like kind of exposed that Iran has just like, they have a mark on Trump's head, like to take him out, in all these countries. They want to do everything they can to not let Trump win. Trump's not a guy that they want to be going into battle with, that they don't want to be having to have these conversations with, because he's just a guy that's going to obliterate them and actually hold them to account, as in they're going to have to pay their fair share of the things that they want to do business with the United States. And they do not want that at all. They want to have somebody that they can just kind of just push whatever way they want and just handle however they want, and someone they can control. They don't want to have, they want to have somebody they can chum me up with. All right. So
look at Iran. We would have never had the attack on Israel at all. Iran was broke. I told China, if you buy, you can't do business in the United States under any we're going to go cold turkey with China.
This is a term I had not heard for a while now, and I don't think Trump used it in this conversation. But remember, he made the term fake news, and so at this point, Trump is talking about like what the media has done to just coronate and promote Kamala, and to put her in, not ask her hard questions, not put her feet to the fire, as in to interview her, or in the small interviews that they have had with her, that they've manipulated them and just edited them and made her look in the best light possible. And he says that one of the most corrupt things that they did, the interview that she had on 60 Minutes, where they took her answer to a question that they were asking about Israel and what she would do, and they took her answer and completely didn't even take what her response was to that, but took a completely other response and put it in that place so it made somewhat sense. But like, and he says that is like one of the most corrupt things that they've ever done, to do that. And to be that behind someone in the media, as opposed to just letting her like just talk, say what she thinks, say what she means, and let them American people decide whether they are going to back her and be behind her and vote for her, or if they're going to kind of manufacture this candidate that the American people can get on board with. So let's see what Trump has to say.
Broadcast history. What happened to CBS? So you have CBS 60 Minutes. That's a news program. It's not an entertainment program. It's under their news. It's the head of their news thing. She gives an answer that shows that she's essentially incompetent. And they took the answer. Could you imagine them doing that for
We can
me?
show it if you want people to see it. Can
Go
we show
ahead.
it? No?
Sure.
We'll get in trouble. We'll get copyright strike. Okay.
I'll
Listen, anyone can find
indemnify
it.
you.
But it's drastic. But what was interesting was the other full version was available initially. It was like a preview.
Somebody made a big mistake.
Somebody put that preview out
Some
there.
kid put the preview out.
Exactly.
And then the bosses did this or that. And then all of a sudden they said, we got a problem.
Exactly.
Okay, so, which is, to me, is very hilarious that 60 Minutes, they, whenever that show happened, they did like kind of to promote the show and everything, all that, they put out there her answering something, and they gave it in her actual response. And this is what tipped people off, that they were able to catch that. And then they edited the video, and then it did not flow whatsoever, and people were able to catch them in their own kind of devices and in their own kind of switching it up, pulling a switcheroo, and very corrupt for them to do this. That's why it's tough about the whole news networks out there. They are in lockstep for the most part with the Democrat Party. They're in whoever's president on or whoever's the candidate for the Democrats, they are in lockstep with them. And you can say that about conservative networks as well, like Fox News, and a lot of just conservative talk radio that are just in line with whoever is the Republican candidate. But so it goes both ways. But a lot of the most power in the media, I would say by far, is on the Democrat side. They have a lot of power and sway amongst the American people because they are on the mainstream news networks. Joe Rogan, he used to be a liberal Democrat. He used to be a liberal, and I would say he's almost like kind of just moderate in the middle. You can tell that he leans conservative in a lot of ways. So he's kind of just that middle of the road kind of person, which is why people love him. He's middle of the road, and he takes things on the conservative side, and he takes things on the liberal side, and he takes the best of them, which is how we should be. We shouldn't be devoted to just an ideology. I'm just a walking zombie for whatever party I want to hold myself to and whatever party I want to feel like I'm in. Sometimes it can be lonely if you don't just completely throw yourself at the mercy of one single party. You are kind of left on your own, but in a lot of ways, you're a free thinker, you're independent, and you just take the best of whatever both sides have. And that's what Joe Rogan does. But right here, he starts being very critical of Gavin Newsom, who is and I think Trump is the one who brought Newsom up, which he's the governor of California. And Trump talks about his relationship with Gavin Newsom and how he used to get along with him somewhat, but he's definitely not anymore. They are not on the same wavelength whatsoever anymore. And how Newsom, whenever he's governor and as the president of China comes to his state, and how they clean up San Francisco, they clean it up, they make it immaculate, and they bring it and make it so that when the president of China comes in, somebody from the outside comes into our country so that it looks the best it can. And they clean up the needles, they clean up the poo on the streets and all that, and make it so it looks nice and pretty. But it's like, why doesn't he do that whenever the president of China is not coming in? Why doesn't he do that always for his state? Why is it when an outside force comes in that you want to make everything look wonderful? Why isn't it instead of just doing it for the people that you are, your constituents, the people that you are overseeing and you're governing, making their lives wonderful? Why is it when someone else outside your country comes in that you roll out the red carpet for them? So just like many famous people out there, many business entrepreneurs out there, Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, he used to be in California. He left California, and him and Elon, they are both, from what I gather, they are both went to Texas. Texas is the state that is you're able to grow a business and make it huge. And as opposed to California, I don't know if things will ever change in California from the way they are, but they're just so heavily regulated and they are so controlling over businesses and so high taxes that it's hard to actually grow and become big, because the government is just like sucking the life out of you. And just like Rogan left California as well, and he's very critical of Gavin Newsom, and he talks about that here. So we can just take a look.
It's been documented in San Francisco. It's a poo app, and it's just everywhere. It's just bum crap everywhere.
But let me give you one that you may not know.
Okay.
Which I think you know everything, actually, as a student of yours. but water, in Los Angeles.
All right, so I like that little giggle part, because Trump, he is a master flatterer. He makes people feel good about themselves in a lot of ways, and some people can't take that. Some people get turned off about that. But you see the little laughter from Joe Rogan right there as Trump. He kind of plays to their ego. He says, "You know everything," and I think Trump believes it. He's a person that says something and he can really believe it. He believes it, and he's funny. He's able to play the camera. He's able to play the audience, and he's able to be a comedic guru, as in to know what's going to get the biggest laughter and the biggest applause from the audience, and as well as the person that he's standing right in front of. So when he's going to another country and talking to these world leaders, he's able to kind of just flatter them in the ways that they are going to need to be flattered. But he's also going to give that strong hand when they need to see that strong hand. But right here, it's to me, it's funny that he says that. So if I had to there are key moments in this talk. There are key topics that they brought up and they went through, and one that it seemed like Rogan kept going back to and wanted to kind of get Donald Trump's stance on was like what he experienced, what his life was when he stepped into the office, what it was for him. Can you give me that firsthand account of what you experienced and what it was like? Another thing that Rogan kept going back to and kept bringing up and wanted to kind of get Trump pinned down at something, what they spent a lot of time talking about was the 2020 election and Trump's stance on arguing that he got cheated, that something was rigged, and did he have proof for it? Because there was a lot of moments in it where Rogan wanted to get kind of Trump on the record. Can you give valid evidence?
The ability to talk like a normal human being. You did my friend Theo Vaughn's podcast,
right?
And he just just did it.
How did he do with
He
it?
did great. He just talks
Is that
like
why
a
you
normal
called me
human
to
being.
do this? Is that why you called me to do this?
No.
Holy cow.
I was.
He was a nice
once
guy.
they shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing.
You hear that? Once he shot you. He's talking about that 20-year-old who back in June shot Trump, shot him, it got him in the ear. He shot a lot more bullets at him. That by the grace of God, Trump is still standing and living. But that's a very key moment. Because I've always been asking, why does Rogan not want to have Trump on his show? Because Trump was president for 4 years and he was out of office for 4 years, and he never gave Trump an offer, an invitation to come on his show. And I think Trump would have taken it in a second if he had. But Rogan he kind of just sat back, and he didn't want to touch that nuclear bomb that is Trump, because it's like, once you take Trump, once you take him, whether you're even to kind of hold him at arm's length or whatever, he's a grenade. He'll explode. He will cause shrapnel to go everywhere, and he will do some damage to who you are and to how people view you, your reputation, whether you like him or love him. If you even take him in the room and you start talking about Trump, and it seems like Joe Rogan kind of stood at arm's length and he stayed back. He didn't even allow Trump to come on his show. But this is a key moment, because he said it was when Trump got shot that he said, that was when I knew I got to have Trump on my show. I got to have you in here. And still, 3 months later, that's when it actually happened. And at the perfect point, a week from the election, until when people are going to be casting their ballot, he brings Trump on his show, and he wants Kamala on there as well. But this is a key pivotal moment in the history of podcasting, of having number 45 come on his show. This is Bangarang Rufio. This is big. It's big. I'm not going to just sit back and just say it's not, because it is. It might not be huge to everyone, but it is huge for everyone.
I think our timing's perfect. Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
What do we say? What do you got
there? Right over here.
Oh, it's a tiny little...
See, it zicked right there.
So, I'm just looking at my ears. My ears are a little bit bigger than Trump's, because, mine hang out here kind of quite a bit, So, I might have a little bit more room to play with right there than he did. But Trump, it says can you imagine that close to your head? That close to your head, a bullet flies by and gets it. That is freaking insane. That is crazy, And that is, to me, that is it's hard to say it's a miracle. I don't know. But to me, it almost, there was some divine intervention. It seemed like it. There had to have been. But it's just, that is a huge moment in human history, a huge moment in our American election cycle that happened, Trump getting shot. Because, it's one thing to him to be shot at, but to have that and then that close to his head, it's crazy. But that is a huge moment. That is when Joe Rogan decided we got to have him on here. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why at that moment he decided that, but it gave a little bit behind the scenes of into Joe Rogan's mind. He's like, that is when I knew I got to have you on here. I got to have you on here.
Is that why you called me to do this?
No. I was.
He was a nice
once
guy.
They shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing.
Timing's
I think
good.
our timing's perfect. Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
What do we say? What do you got there?
Right over here.
Right. Oh, it's a tiny little...
Okay, so that's Trump showing his scar to Joe Rogan right there. All right, now let's move a little bit forward. Rogan, in the discussion about how all the people have poured into our country out that have not come in through the door that is the immigration process, that have come through just walking in, why the administration that is in power right now has allowed that to happen. There's a key moment in this video that Joe Rogan asked Trump. He says, why is this happening? Why would the Democrat Party, the ones in power, why would they be allowing this? What is the point? Why would they want it? Is it because they want to buy votes? All right. So this is when it switches to the talking about the MMA and talking about the fighting in the UFC and then talking about boxing. And they just seem like two boys just sitting there just talking about their passion and their love and their zeal for life. And it's fun to listen to because, and I think a lot of guys out there in this world and a lot of guys out there in this country can relate to this because it's just you talking with your boys. So
down to 12.
Which, look, they should do that. I'm not the fighter.
talking about boxing.
But those 15-round fights were unbelievable.
They were unbelievable.
They were
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Yeah, you go
In
back to
terms
the
of-
golden age.
Yeah, in terms of entertainment,
Oh, yeah.
those were the championship rounds. Those were the greatest fights
Those
ever.
last 3 rounds were crazy.
That was
I mean,
brutal.
it's such a war of attrition. You know, a lot of people think even like a 5-round UFC fight. UFC is 5-minute rounds. It's so much
Tough.
energy you're burning out. And those last couple of rounds, those 5-round fights, the 4th and the 5th round, unbelievably brutal.
Who's the greatest UFC fighter in you? Are you allowed?
All right, this is a key moment. He says to Rogan, I like this a lot. He talks about who is the greatest UFC fighter out there. Who's the greatest fighter out there? You know, and Rogan, this is a guy who's seen all the fights, who's like front and center at all the fights, announcing them, and just he's able to like kind of give his opinion, his viewpoint on there. And Trump asks him, who is the best fighter out there?
4th and the 5th round, unbelievably brutal.
Who's the greatest UFC fighter in you? Are you allowed to say, in your opinion? It's tough for you to say because you do this, but who do you think is the greatest of the fighters?
There's a lot of arguments for who's the greatest of all time. You know, John Jones, most people would say is the greatest of all time, never lost. There's certainly a really good argument for that. There's another argument for George St. Pierre. I always leave in BJ Penn in his prime, Anderson Silva in his prime, you know, Mighty Mouse. People forget about Mighty Mouse because unfortunately,
So like Rogan, he can just rattle off these fighters because he is so like entrenched in it. He knows it. It's like just in his mind. He can just say, it's like those guys that out there that just have baseball memorized and they just have what happened on this play in 1972 and 1990 or whatever. And they can just say in this game, the 7th game of the World Series or whatever, or they know the players down to the smallest stat there is. And these guys that just know it at the back of their hand. And Joe Rogan does that. He knows that about fighting. He is like, his heart bleeds for fighting. He loves it, you know? Which brings me to a point about myself. I want to get into fighting. I want to become the ultimate fighting champion. I'd love to do that. I'd love to just somehow start getting into that, you know? I want to do it. I want to do it. I won't stop until I am the ultimate fighting champion. All right, so let's move on. Okay. Like I've said over and over, Trump, he's able to mirror and cozy up to whoever he's talking with because he's very relatable. That's why he can go into like, you know, having conversations with other countries, high leaders, and then he can also go into becoming a McDonald's employee and have close conversations with anybody. He can relate to anybody out there. Whoever it is, that's why the people like absolutely love him. You know, people just seeing him on a screen and everything like that. It's so easy to not like the man and just think he's an arrogant, you know, something, as opposed to people that if you're actually with him and talking to him, a lot of people come away that, man, he gets me because he is at his heart blue collar. You know, it would seem like he grew up like with a silver spoon and everything like that, went to the best of schools, went to all this, you know, but really he was a person that was blue collar. He was he felt much more comfortable not being in the office and at a board meeting, but rather being with the people that were building his buildings, to be out there with the contractors that were the ones making it and putting it together. He was much more comfortable doing that, and he can relate to anyone. You know, and that's what he does in this conversation with Joe. He brings up to that he starts taking it. He knows that Joe Rogan was a fan and is a fan of RFK Jr. And now Trump has RFK Jr. endorsing him and backing him up. And he's kind of like in his party, in his fold of influence. And he starts bringing him up, and because he knows Joe Rogan Joe Rogan endorsed RFK Jr. He was the person that was behind RFK Jr. And now RFK Jr. is on Trump's side, and so and Trump is absolutely fanatic about bringing him up to Joe. He says because I think what Trump wants is like kind of like an endorsement. He wants Rogan to endorse him, and I don't think Rogan is going to. I don't know. That is actually interesting. Like to think about, is Rogan going to take a stance and endorse somebody before the actual election. I don't think he will. But I do think he is definitely going to vote for Trump. I think he'll probably, maybe he'll say that. But is that kind of like endorsing someone? He's going to say, I'm going to vote for him, because I don't think it's going to be really hidden who he's going to vote for. But I think he'll vote for him, but maybe not be out on the front lines and saying from his microphone, like, of defending and just promoting Trump. I think he's just going to be more so, I'm going to vote for him kind of thing. I don't think he's going to have a hard stance and like completely like throw all of his cards into Trump's camp, as in like Elon Musk has. Elon Musk has like thrown everything at Trump and said, and like completely backed him and says, and is in lockstep with Trump. I don't think Rogan's going to do that, but I think Trump wants that from Rogan. He wants Rogan's a complete endorsement, and he kind of comes at it with this RFK to bring him up. He says, you like RFK, don't you? Well, he's on my side now, so, but I kind of wish that Trump would have said, who are you going to vote for? Or who are you going to he didn't say that. He didn't bring that up and just like kind of like put it back. And maybe that's not the right way to go about it. Maybe that you don't do that to someone that you're on their show and kind of put them in that position. These guys are like, they are just political machines and just maniacs, and they're just smart to the T. They know what they're doing. They're going to do everything in the best light possible for their interests. And I think Trump wants that interest of Rogan for himself. He wants him to just give me that endorsement, but Rogan kind of, he's not there yet. We still got a week or so till the elections. Maybe he's holding back because he's going to see if Kamala is going to come on his show or not, because he can't really completely and totally endorse Trump and then have Kamala on there, and it'll be almost like that kind of that opposition. I think he still wants her on to come on a show, but if it comes to a point where she's not going to go on there, I think he'll say, at least I am behind Trump. I'm going to be casting the ballot for Trump. He won't completely throw all be at a rally for Trump or anything like that, but I think he's going to give his approval and his endorsement, if you will, to Trump. So this is a really interesting for me. So Trump, he starts talking about how Kamala has been taking a break. And this is the same way with Joe Biden. Whenever, a lot of times, like his first run at president, when Joe Biden became the president, he was not in the limelight. He was kind of just, they kept saying Joe in the basement. They kept him in the basement, didn't put him out there. And then he just kind of just won the election by default, as in I don't even know. They just kept him off the stage, didn't let him get into trouble. And the same way with Kamala, she's kind of just hung back, is taking days off, because it seems like every time she gets put in front of a camera, she gets herself into more and more hot water and starts putting more and more things out there that people are just like scratching their head, like, really? Really? And I think it's because she is so just clammed up and just so just rigid in what she does. She's not like being herself. She's not saying who she truly is, because I think behind it, I think she is pretty radical. I think she is like kind of just putting this face on there. There's this mask on herself that we're not seeing who she is, because I think behind it, she is very radical. And that itself is like why I've said, if Trump doesn't become president, it's going to be we're going to go in a crazy direction as a country. We are going to go in a crazy direction as a country. A lot of things are going to be changing. What Kamala Harris will be doing if she's president is just going to be completely upheaval to our system, which to me ain't going to be so bad. I'm not too thrilled with the system itself, honestly. But I mean, so if she wins, whatever, I want Trump to win because I think it's going to be the best thing for our nation. But if Kamala wins, I might just grab my popcorn and just see the country just go in a completely different direction, go off a cliff, and burn to the ground. Who knows? Either way, that won't be boring. Like you go to a fire and you look at a fire and it's like, it's not boring because it's all burning up, And to me, either way, if that's the way we want to go as a country. But I just think she just kind of she's not putting who she really is out there, because I think that would frighten a lot of the voters if she actually just said who she was. you know? But maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe people would get on board with her, you know? Kamala, just show us your true colors. Who are you? Who are you? Show us who you are so that people can truly decide. Don't just hide behind something. Maybe it's because she's so afraid that people won't elect her. People won't vote for her because she might be truly actually radical.
I haven't taken a day off in 56 days. That's a long time. I haven't taken one day off. I don't want to play golf. This is too exciting. Golf is great, but this is too exciting. This is more exciting than anything you can do. And
also, it's the home stretch.
It's the home stretch. Who would take a day off? So we have 11.
So we are at the very end. We're at the tail end of campaigning, of election, of getting out there, putting your best foot forward, putting your best face out there. And Kamala's sitting it out in a lot of ways. And Trump's out there promoting himself, promoting his agenda, promoting his political stance and his viewpoint of the direction he wants our country to go. So it is different. You know, I think Kamala, just get out there, show us who you are. Keep showing us who you are. Don't be just rigid. Don't just sit back and just let the political waves come take over you, but just you be out there and give us your stance and opinion, what you believe. Don't be a talking point. Don't just say what you think people want to hear and what's going to get you elected, but what do you truly believe? There's one thing, about Trump, we know what he believes. We know what he's going to do. He's been upfront and honest. Kamala, a lot of times just says, go to my website and see all my policies, my stance on a lot of things. And it doesn't really herself vocalize it when she's out there in front of the camera, what she really believes. You know, she doesn't say it. She just does a lot of word salads of just kind of just beating around the bush, just saying something it's a lot of gobbledygook that doesn't actually express or give us any more new information. It's just the same old stuff that we've heard over and over repeated, that we're not getting any new information. What are you going to do?
I'm plus 30 and I'm on TikTok.
I think
it's had a huge impact.
Young people are rejecting a lot of this woke bullshit. Young people are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill, telling them what the moral standards of society should be today. And people are upset.
There's a big difference now, but even in just a couple of years, I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The rebels are Republicans now.
There it is.
They're like, you want to be a rebel? You want to be punk rock? You want to buck the system? You're a conservative now. That's how.
There it is. You want to be a rebel? Joe Rogan says you be a Republican. Is the world gone upside down? And is it crazy enough to hear that? Republicans, many people just think are the stalest thing in the world. You know, I don't even know if I should say this, because I think I've registered as a Republican, but I wouldn't even almost consider myself a Republican. It's the same way I go to a Baptist church, but I really wouldn't consider myself a Baptist. You know, I am just a Christian. I am a follower of Christ. I'm on the outskirts by myself. I'm lonesome in a lot of ways because I don't align completely with one denomination or over the other. I'm solely a follower of Christ. And in the same way, I wouldn't say I'm a Republican, but I think I am registered as a Republican, you know? And I think I'm an independent thinker. Honestly, I don't even know, I just know I've voted before in a Republican primary, and and only one time. And I think you can only vote in a Republican primary if you are a registered Republican. I honestly don't know. I don't know if I am or not, but either way, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. I am a free thinker. I'm an independent thinker. And I think most people should be I think we need to obliterate parties. I've said that many times. Get rid of Democrats, get rid of Republicans. We are Americans. That's it solely. Nothing else. We are Americans at our core, and let's just talk about what do you believe, what do I believe, and let's try to find out what is the best course of action and direction that we can come together and go as a country. You know, we don't need to be I'm on this team, I'm on that team, tribal and instinct. You know, that's where we're gonna just be tearing ourselves apart. We don't need to tear ourselves apart. Let's come together. Let's come together. The children. But that is a huge moment. Rogan, he's just upfront and honest. You want to be a rebel, you be a Republican. That is just funny as heck to me that he would say that, you know?
So crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well,
both sides, like Joe Rogan, he's talking about like the growing up in the 90s, you go against the system, you rage against the machine. Now the machine is completely turned and it's on the Democrat side. They are the ones that are in lockstep, that you get molded into, have no uniqueness anymore. You have no individuality. You have to walk completely in lockstep if you are on the Democrat side. But to be a free thinker and actually be able to voice your opinion and not be completely cast out of the people, cast from the people, you have to be either an independent or a Republican. Otherwise, you ain't gonna make it in no Democrat Party today. And it goes completely countercultural to what it was prior to that. It's a bad.
I got more, guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like.
I just think of and Trump, he says this over and over, and I like that his political enemies are coming out at him with the full force of the justice system and trying to put him in jail. If a lot of times this is just human nature, that who you are as an individual, who you are at your core, and what you most dislike in your hatred of things. A lot of times it's from what you have within you. You project it onto others. The worst things that you hate about yourself, you put it on others. And that's what the left has done. They are putting on to Trump, and they're saying he's going to be a dictator. He's going to be a person that is going to just come at us and try to put us in jail and try to just come at us with the justice system and throw us in prison and everything like that. When they are the ones doing it to him, they are explicitly doing it to him. Lock him up. And the crowd goes wild, Joe Biden says.
Like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone. Only because it's political opponent stuff. And I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win. But you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent. Yeah. I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's what you're doing.
That's what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say.
You hear that? That's what they say. You're going to throw us in jail. You're going to do this. And it's when Trump was president, he did not put Hillary in court. He did not put who he was going to go against, Joe Biden, in court and in having to defend his life and just threatening him with prison for the rest of his life. But that is what the other side is doing to him, which is so bananas and crazy. It's crazy what they're doing to him and what they've done to him this whole time. He is the most investigated person ever.
I could have put crooked Hillary.
I respected that you didn't, because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I couldn't even imagine. You have, first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it. I never said it. They say, lock her up. And I'd always go, take it easy. Just relax. We're going to win this thing.
I know it's going to piss a lot of people off. I absolutely know that, But if you're listening to this and you're getting pissed off, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I mean, if somebody's saying something that is gonna different than what I think, I'm not gonna be pissed off at them. I'm not gonna man, I hate you. I hate you. Heck no. What's the point? Let's just say what we think. Say what we think. That's the thing. Why do we got to be so freaking filtered about everything? Let's cast off the filter and get it out of people's mind that they have to be so filtered, Let's live in a society where we can just talk, say what we think, say what we believe, and not have someone screaming down our throat. Say what you think. Say what you believe. What do you believe? It's fun. Let's talk about it. We're Americans, baby. We're Americans. That's what is so freaking awesome. If you're an American, just love that. that we can say what we want. I mean, you just go to Canada and people have to be a lot more hush hush and not voice their opinions. If you start saying something about the people in power, your mouth's going to be shut pretty dang quick. And same thing over in Europe. They're like they have to be hush hush in a lot of ways and not vocalize what they truly believe. Americans, we have a amazing gift and blessing in our lives that we can have freedom of speech. And this might be the last little bit that we actually have that if Trump doesn't win. If Trump loses, man, the first thing they're going to come at is our freedom of speech. Second thing is going to be at people's guns. They're going to start like completely taking them away. Because those are the two things. Those are the very first things in our Constitution. Those are the first things that are like the First and Second Amendment. Freedom of speech, and you better get a gun. Those are the first things, that the founders thought were so important that people need to have, and it's like, we should hold that as tightly as we can. Like, they have to pry it from our cold, dead hands to be able to get those two things away from us. Our ability to say what we think and our ability to have guns, our ability to protect ourselves, because we're not just protecting ourselves from just random people out there. Oh, even though that is extremely important, but we're protecting ourselves from the ones that are in power. The ones that are in power. And you could say, oh yeah, they could just drop a drone on us in a second. That ain't going to happen. That would not happen, because the people that are in power, that are the military commanders, those are the same people that are citizens and that would be fighting like hell against the tyrannical regime that would be above us. They would be the ones that would be fighting back as well, because those God-fearing, country-loving people that are military people are still private citizens, and they would still be fighting against that, and they would not allow us to lose. There would be civil war again that would happen, but I think the ones that are supposed to win would win again. We would win again, and we would not allow the people in power to just overhaul our lives and just destroy us and like put their boot on our necks. We would rise up and fight back, All right, so this right here is Trump. He's talking about Kamala and how she has flipped her positions on so many topics. There's so many topics that she does no longer stand from where she previously stood. So you could say that she's evolved. She has a difference of opinion and thought, but like, it's not just one singular issue, but it's a lot of different ones. A lot of different ones that she's kind of just went to the center and just kind of like embraced his point of view on so many different things. She's the one that's promoting building a wall, but she's just still attacking him on a lot of different things. But it's just kind of like we're in the twilight zone, and so we just see what he has to say about this
topic. And, she changed policies on 15. I've never seen anybody change on more than one. You can maybe get away with one. Her whole life, fracking, every single thing that she was for, the confiscation of guns. She wants to confiscate. Now she's saying everybody should have a gun. In fact, we're going to get her a MAGA cap. I'm going to send her a MAGA cap. But she's changed, and I don't think people are buying it.
All right, so like, it brings up, he's going to give Kamala a MAGA cap. That was one thing, like at the debate, he didn't actually do it. He didn't bring her a MAGA hat and give it to her, and I'm just trying to think, would I wear a MAGA hat? I might wear a MAGA hat if it was an Elon Musk MAGA hat, the black hat, the dark MAGA. But that red MAGA, man, that's like old school, man. You gotta be a fighter. You got to be someone that don't give a dang about what people are going to think if you're going to wear a MAGA hat out there, because people are going to be throwing down at you. I mean, you are immediately going to get looks if you're wearing a MAGA hat. You almost got have a couple screws loose to wear a MAGA hat, or you just got to be a badass, to have that confidence to wear a MAGA hat, because people are not going to be happy if you're wearing that, But I think with Elon Musk bringing out dark MAGA, I think that might actually change a couple things, because some people might get on board with that. And that might be a little more low profile, and it actually like looks a lot cooler. Dark MAGA. It's like the Dark Knight, man.
Federal government, it's crazy. And because the mayor came out and said, we can't live like this.
They investigated him.
By the way, I called it. I said, he just got himself indicted. This group is stupid, but they're vicious. They're stupid people, but they're vicious people.
All right. So this is where Rogan is going to switch it back to, and what she keeps bringing the point to, it seems like, to the 2020 election and what happened there and where Trump stands on it. He brings it up multiple times, and he wants to almost put Trump like on record, even though he's on record, but he wants to get him on record on his show to like kind of, I think it's just like you find like somebody you see on the screen out there that you see that this famous person, because you think of Rogan, he's extremely famous. Trump, I would say, is next level famous because he is like just a world recognized individual, and that's been out there, and whether you hate him or you love him, he is very widely known, even more so than Rogan. And it's like Rogan has him in front of him, and it's something that's been behind in his mind of what he thinks about Trump, and he wants to get him on. What do you stand on this? I want to actually know, what do you actually believe? Do you really think that you got cheated from the last election? Do you really think that it was stolen? And if you do believe that, what is your evidence? Where are you getting that? And what is your evidence? Do you have something that you could give to us that would make us believe that, yeah, it was truly stolen? And he keeps bringing it back to that and wants to get Trump on it, like just get him on record. He wants to him to be on record on his show and to show it to his audience. But as we're going to see here, Trump does not really, he doesn't give any like hard evidence. He points to things and he points to things to people to go to find but it's like, I mean, how are you going to give someone like a courtroom evidence of something? How are you going to prove this? And that's the thing. I think the 2020 election is almost a gut thing. Either like in your gut, do you think it got stolen, or in your gut, or do you think it was just because a lot of people understand that there's always fraud in the election. Nobody's questioning that. There's always some form of cheating in the election. It's not a perfect, pristine election happening, but it's just like, was it enough to overturn the results of what happened? I think it is a gut thing. In people's gut, you either think it got stolen, or you don't, you know? But is there enough evidence to actually go out there and be able to prove it? At this time, I don't think we can do that. I don't think people, one way or the other, are going to be able to prove that it was stolen or not stolen and what happened. And I think that's why Trump needs to like get up beyond this, and not even like, if someone brings it up to him, either the election, the 2020 election, like almost like kind of move it along and go to the next topic, because there's no reason kind of relitigating it, because it's not going to persuade anybody. And a lot of times it just pushes people away from him when he talks about it. But Rogan definitely wanted to bring it up because he brought it up multiple times in this conversation, and he wants to get Trump like kind of on the record. What do you think about this?
2020 elections. You say you have all this evidence that it was rigged. Why haven't you put this evidence in a consumable form? And what?
Oh, I did. I have books on it. And by the way, books have been written on it. We have an author named Hemingway who is...
So, I mean, it's not really like... that itself is not going to make people get on board and just say, I believe you. To me, it's a moo point. It's a moo point. And like, why would we even talk about it? There's no even point to bring it up. It's not going to do anything. All it's going to do is push people away and just keep people at arm's length. There's no reason to even go down that road whatsoever. And I don't know why Trump even takes that. I really don't even know why, because this has to be something that Rogan really wants to dial in on and kind of get where Trump is at, because he keeps bringing it up. He keeps asking Trump about this 2020 election. Why do you think it was stolen? What is your proof?
There's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot.
Right.
It has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left. And it's so bad. The one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong...
So this keeps talking about it. Like, how could we have a free and fair election? And he quotes like Elon Musk, whether, I don't know if Elon Musk said it out there in the public or whatever, but in their conversation maybe, the only way we're going to have true legitimate elections without any fraud is if we have people in person voting on written ballots. and just written ballots, and written paper ballots, and not going through these computers and everything and doing it that way, that we're actually going to get to what is the true vote of everyone out there. And obviously what goes into that, and the people coming in to vote would have to show proof of who they are. It's so nuts, because in California, they've made laws to even bring up the fact of people voting without ID, saying you can't even ask for someone's identification because that would be reprehensible. You can't bring that up, and it's like they almost want to do everything in their power. It would be one thing if both sides were doing this. So it's like the Republicans almost need to have a fight fire with fire kind of thing. They need to do something. They need to do something a little bit kind of crazy to kind of counteract where the Democrats are coming from. Because to me, it makes no sane whatsoever position to think for the left and the Democrats to be fighting for people to vote without any identification. Why would they even do that? Like, why are they even doing that? And it's like, how is that even a reasonable stance on this issue, saying on having election integrity, to say people have to be able to vote without identification? How do you come to that? And how is that something that's so widely accepted? And Trump brings up, he says, the people that are on the Democrat side, as in when he's talking about Democrats, he's talking about the high up people, the politicians. He's not talking about regular, ordinary Democrats. He's talking about the politicians that are in power. They're the ones that are fighting for this. The regular, just Democratic, blue collar people that have just been Democrats their whole life. They're not like die hard. I want everybody to be able to vote without identification. It's the people that are in power that are doing that. The corrupt politicians that are doing that on the left. It's like definitely there are corrupt politicians on the right, but they're not the ones that are fighting for people to be able to vote without identification. It just seems so backwards and flipped. So there are a couple like very interesting points in this video that get brought up. The fun topics. So the one topic that I don't know why, actually I do know why, I think I know why Rogan didn't bring up, but would have been a fun topic to talk about. There it goes. There go the balloons. All right, but would have been a fun topic to talk about would have been the moon landing. To see, just like there's always room for the moon landing. There's always room for the moon landing. Just to bring it up, to talk about it. It's fun. But he didn't bring it up in this context. And I think he wanted to keep it at a more serious level. He wanted to keep it more just mainstream, something that can level with everyone out there. Because it's the crazies out there that want to talk about the moon landing. And I would consider myself a crazy. I'm a crazy. I love to talk about that. I love to hear about it. It's fun. It's interesting. And I wish he would have brought it up in talking to Trump, what his stance on it is on this. And they kind of got into this when they started talking about aliens, but they didn't go to the heart of the issue, as in the moon landing. All right, but right here, this is something that is kind of out there, that is a conspiratorial event in human history, in American history more specific, is he brings up the RFK assassination, and it says like, what do you think on that? And what are you going to do if you're president? And why didn't you do it when you were president before? And releasing the files and putting out there what actually happened and what we have in record. And Trump is going to explain to him, he's going to say, I will release the files when I become president again. The reason like that I didn't the first time was more, he says, because it has to do with people still living that it could have effect on. I'm not too clear on that, but like that's where he stands on it. And and they start talking about that kind of arena. And this is where they start going into, Rogan's like, I only got a few more like minutes with them. I'm going to start bringing something out. But why they didn't touch the moon landing, that is something I don't know why. I think maybe for a future video together, now that he's broken the seal, that Trump has gone on to Rogan's show, hopefully there's going to be other times that he can come on there and they can talk about, the craziest, outlandish things out there, that what Trump really knows. Because it's like when you're in your second term as a president, that's when you can start pardoning people. That's when you can start doing your real agenda. It's not really your first term, because you're having to do things so that you can get elected again. I think maybe in that second term, he's going to have that freedom to do whatever he wants, voice whatever he really believes, and just kind of like take things to the moon, take things to the moon and back,
I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine.
Talk
It's
about
going to
the
be
RFK
time.
files.
It's a cleansing. It's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it immediately, almost immediately upon entering office.
Well, the thing, when people look at it from the outside and you sort of imagine what could be a reason why they would not release those files, it would be there's people that were implicated in the assassination.
Yeah. Well,
so I think if Trump gets elected again, everything's going to come out. That's why, he is going to be like a wild man entering the party and ready to just cleanse, purify, drain that swamp, like really drain it. Go after the deep state. He's going to be fighting like hell against the things that are out there, the things that are happening in our twisted government. Get ready. Either way, it'll be more boring if Kamala wins, but either way, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be a show to watch. Get ready, people. It's going to be a show to watch. All right. So it's about 15 minutes left in the show, and it gets brought up about aliens. This is when it gets really good. And I wish they would have spent more time talking about it, but they had to talk about policy and political issues and things about this and things about that. Why didn't they spend more time talking about the fun stuff? And he brings up aliens to Trump and where he stands on it. So Trump, he says let's actually just listen to it.
Thing that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
No, a little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. There's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, because
Mars we've had.
All right, so Trump says, he gets asked the question about aliens because he's had a lot of conversations with people that are in the military and that have had these sightings, these things that they've seen that they cannot explain. So he's had a lot of those conversations and what he actually believes. Thinking about aliens is just fun to me. And Trump, he says, there's no reason not to think it. There's no reason not to think it. And I kind of go more down the Tucker Carlson route, as in what these things are, as in actual aliens out there. I'm not, there could be, but I kind of lean more towards that they're not really there. I don't think that there are actual aliens out there. I think it's more of a spiritual realm, as in more demonic kind of things that are out there. So I kind of go down that route more, but they are almost kind of appearing as aliens, and that there actually might be aliens that do come to this planet, but really what's behind them is demonic spiritual evil that is actually behind them. And they might look glorious and beautiful, but as I see it as that is actually probably going to happen. So if that does happen, kind of really be on guard, everyone out there. If that really does happen, be on guard, because more than likely they're not just peaceful beings that just want the best for our planet and the best for us, but they're probably more controlled as in by evil demonic entities behind them that just appear as aliens. So they probably are out there. So I know I'm saying a lot of different things, but I really think they're out there as demons and as spiritual forces out there, but they're going to appear and look like just what we would think an alien would be. And they might fly down in a saucer and just fly down to us and walk out, and look like an alien, what we would think an alien looks like. But really, there's something behind them controlling, pulling the strings, kind of just making the controls go up and down and move and just talk to us. I don't know about that. But there's something that's going to be behind them, and that's going to make us all in just amazement and just wonder and completely submission to these beings. That's what I kind of think. That's what I think is what's going to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if that does unfold before our eyes, But Trump, he says it wouldn't be. There's no reason not to think there are. There's no reason not to think there are. And that's somebody that has a lot of information in his head.
Probes there and rovers, and I don't think there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know, but maybe
there was life there at one point in time. This is a speculation about Mars, that Mars had an atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support life. It also had large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars. But
how do we know anything about Mars in the first place? How do we actually know? How do we know? Are there really scientific things out there that we know that there's not bacteria on Mars? I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that would be something we'd be able to tell. I don't think there is. I think that things are just, for our universe, we think that we're here, that there has to be so many other life forms that are out there as well in our universe, because how could we just be this special privileged planet, as opposed to like, there has to be lots of other ones out there, which, that becomes when it's more philosophical, and your worldview on whether there's a God, whether they're theistic or not, whether there are many gods, or whether is this just a simulation? How can things just be like that it is right here? How could these things not be happening the same thing outside of our material world, outside of our planet that we live on? There has to be all these things out there as well. But I mean, that's when it becomes more philosophical and what your beliefs are in deeper realities, as opposed to just like the things that are right in front of us.
But the
it's
universe
not
is
been a
pretty
big
vast.
thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up, and a lot of people thought, for a little while that was one of these things.
Well, that's a lot of the speculation too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones, and that they're not UFOs.
I mean, they
could be
gave
also.
the
There's some
excuse
super
they didn't want it to
sophisticated.
come down whenever, it would
let's
be
say 3 or
dangerous
4
for the
guys
people down below. But there was
and
many
without
times where
tremendous
many
interest,
places they could have easily
if
shot
you
it
had
down.
them,
Why they didn't, I don't know.
As I said,
That was just a
you'd
weird
love to have
deal
them as
when
your
that actually
children.
happened.
Solid, beautiful people. Have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. Will ever be. I think just really bad things will happen to our country. And you know what? I look at the outside forces and I say they can all be handled because we have a pot of gold. But we're not going to have that pot of gold to play with anymore. It's a great negotiating thing. I told you, I knocked out this massive car company, going to take all of our car business from Detroit. I knocked it out just by my rhetoric. Rhetorically, I said, they'll never sell a car in here. I'll put tariffs. I don't care if they're 2,000%. They're never going to build that plant. And
Is it possible to apply that same thing to the electronics that we use? One of the things that disturbs me greatly is that all of our phones are made overseas. And then some of our phones are made in places like... Yes, and the chips. And some of our phones are made in places like Foxconn, where they have nets around the building to keep people from jumping off the roof because they have so many suicides.
So, I mean, if you watch this video and you don't watch the whole thing, if you fast forward to the last 30 to 20 minutes, it's really good. I mean, if you just watch the last 30 minutes, I'd say that's almost the best point in the video of what they talk about. All right, so there were a lot of things happening in this whole conversation, this interview. You should go watch the entire episode because it was awesome. There weren't a whole lot of just amazing moments, but the whole thing overall, I think, was very, very awesome. One of the best I've ever seen Joe Rogan do. But I wish there were other things that he would have asked and brought up and talked to Trump about. Like, you have him on your show, ask him about it, but maybe he's saving it for future episodes. Maybe there's things in the future that we can have, they'll have together. And he didn't want to bring it all out right before the election. The thing in show business, you've got to always have people wanting more. You got to leave them wanting more, and maybe Joe Rogan did that in this. But overall, it was an amazing episode. I highly recommend go watch the entire thing. I'll probably watch it again myself. So we'll see how everything unfolds in the election. It's coming up. All right, get out there and vote. Make your voice heard. Show them what you're made of. Let's go.
Brace yourself.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps keep the content coming. Until next time, stay blessed and keep shining.